You're listening to Side Hustle Pro, the podcast that teaches you to build and grow your side hustle from passion project to profitable business. And I'm your host, Nicaila Matthews-Okome. So let's get started. Hey friends, hey, welcome back to the show. It's Nicaila here, and today in the guest chair, I have Melyssa Ford. Melyssa is a media personality, actress, and advocate known for her dynamic presence in entertainment. With a career spanning television, film, and radio, she has captivated audiences as a host on the Joe Budden podcast and various TV appearances. And as a seasoned veteran in media and entertainment, Melyssa has mastered the art of pivoting and identifying viable opportunities to launch into new and exciting spaces. And now Melyssa is using her platform to foster meaningful conversations about wellness, intimacy, and health as we hurdle obstacles and enter our next stage of life. With her relatable, candid approach, Melyssa is passionate about empowering all through open dialogue and education. And in today's episode, she gets into why her winding career has led her to exactly where she's meant to be. I hope this conversation inspires you and reassures you as much as it did me. So let's get right into it. Melyssa, welcome to the guest chair.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too. And you know, everybody I mentioned that I was interviewing you two, everybody was like, oh my God. And I was like, okay, relax, calm down. You have such a fan base across generations. I'm talking across gender and generations. And I was taken aback by it.
Yeah, it's sometimes it surprises me too. Like when 20 and 22-year-olds like know who I am. But I think that I got kind of introduced to that generation by way of doing the Joe Budden podcast.
Yes.
So, I've got my day ones that are in my age group and maybe a little bit older and a little bit younger. But when I get like the same kids that are watching Kai Cenat, I'm like, wow.
Wow. We have a broad audience here.
Yeah. It feels really good though.
And it feels really good to talk to you. Like, I already feel like such a great rapport, and I'm excited for this convo. But let's take it back a little bit. I always forget this, but you're actually from Canada, right? So when did you actually move to the States and start working here?
I moved to the States on September 11th, 2000, a year to the day before the towers came down.
Wow.
Had I known that was going to be my anniversary, I probably would have saved the plane ticket, but that was the day that I moved here. Now, did I have permission from my country to leave and this country to stay here? No, I did not. But that's part of
but
the immigrant.
It's
just part of the immigrant experience. A lot of times is you figure it out once you're inside.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I am now and have been for a very long time a tax-paying citizen of this country.
Yes. And you classify yourself as a media personality. Obviously, you're an actress, you're an advocate. And when you started out making, I've heard you call them short films. Tell us about these short films and your career and how it got started in the film industry.
I called them mini motion pictures, and basically they were music videos, but it was the golden age of doing music videos. It was a very rare block of time in which the music industry and labels were flush with money. Exorbitant amounts of money was being spent on music videos, and music videos were not like, what they're like now. Like I don't even remember the last time I saw like a recent music video. But I mean, music videos at this time were such a big deal that like MTV would be like world premiere, and everybody would just run to the TV to see this newest video. And usually it was somebody huge like Nas or Jay-Z or whoever. But it was really exciting to be a part of that world at that time. Not really knowing how impactful it was going to be for the culture forever. It was a very specific time. It was the golden age, and it left an indelible mark on everybody's brains, like
For sure.
for so many different reasons. For young girls watching videos, a lot of the time this was the first time they saw any kind of real representation that where they
Yep.
saw themselves in that, which is wonderful. And then for guys, well, I think it's pretty obvious what they enjoyed about watching us do
Yeah.
music videos. But it was a really, 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 really wonderful time. Really
It really
wonderful.
was. And I don't think I've unpacked that in a while. The fact that I don't know what these artists are doing these days. I'm sure someone is watching, but like this was the main event for this was a
Hmm.
huge part of us getting to know the artists and their album. And like you said, I'm part of the TRL generation. I remember having to be home by 4 o'clock, the 106 in Park generation to see those
Hmm.
premieres, to see these artists and to have videos running in the background. Like that was part of your getting ready in the morning. And
Yep.
nowadays it's just not the same. It's not the same kind of thing. If when I see that there's a video for a song, I'm like, oh, there's a video for this.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm
So,
just
I mean,
used to
social media
streaming it.
changed social media just
Yeah.
basically, well, before social media came along, the record industry has always, kind of been in flux
Hmm.
constantly, and I mean, just what we're seeing right now, we're seeing such a massive consolidation of the labels into just these huge conglomerates, like,
Yes.
Universal Music Group and everything that's kind of like all the subsidiaries underneath of it and stuff like that. Whereas it wasn't like that 20 years ago. It was like, Capitol and,
Right. It's even crazy to hear you say 20 years ago. I'm still wrapping my mind around it. How did you, as a young woman coming to a whole new country, manage the pivot, right? Once you started to feel like I want to move beyond this phase of my career, how did you manage the fear, the dauntingness of like figuring out what's next?
I just always, I had all of these analogies in my head, sink or swim, the cream rises to the top, and just all these cliched phrases. But,
Yeah.
I just always envisioned myself like a baby bird that has to be pushed out of the nest in order for it to
Hmm.
know it can fly. And there's going to be fear involved. But my way of thinking is just like, taking the road less traveled and, creating
Mm.
footprints, and just like, not necessarily following like the beaten path, just like flying by the seat of my pants and following the beat of my own drum kind of thing. I know I
Yeah.
just threw a whole bunch of
Yeah,
cliches
you
back
every
at you,
single one
but
back to
but
back
I
to
swear this is literally how
But
I
sometimes you
live.
have
Like,
to do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
just gotta
when I moved here, I had two suitcases, $25, and a one-way ticket. Like, I really
Yeah.
am that story.
Yeah.
And like I said, I did not have permission from my country to leave. I didn't have permission from this country to stay. And people are like, well, it's just Canada. I'm like, it is
Yeah.
a totally different country with a totally different culture. Like, we're owned by the Queen. You know what I'm saying? Like, we may as
Yes.
well be Brits up there. It's
Ah,
very different from American culture. And
yeah.
I had a lot of culture shock when I moved here. But when it came to feeling fear or hesitation, when it came to trying something new, I was just like, why did you leave your country if you're not just going to throw caution to the wind and just
Yeah.
do it? I'd rather suffer from the fear of failure than the fear of regret of not trying something. That's also how I kind of live my life.
And you just reminded me too, like I'm also an immigrant. Our family immigrated from Jamaica.
Hmm.
And there's something about when you come from another country that this fear of having to go, even if there's nothing wrong with it, like going back is a symbol of some kind of failure, of some kind of you
Hmm.
didn't do what you came here to do.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
motivates you.
It does. It does. And I just had no intentions of ever going back,
Yeah.
And people say that to me a lot. Like, would you ever go back to Canada? I'm like, no. No, no, never. It's literally like a book I read a long time ago.
Yeah.
Close that chapter, just put that on the bookshelf,
Hmm.
and it's just like the way that I've kind of like envisioned my life is,
Yes.
that I have several lifetimes to live inside of this one. And so
Hmm.
the first first part of my life was I was born and raised in Canada. I left there when I was about 21,
Mm,
22-ish. And so then I've lived in the States for, shoot, like I guess like 24 years now, something to that
wow.
effect.
Yeah.
But this is not the last stop for me. I do not see myself living the
Mm.
rest of my life in the US. I see
Oh,
myself
really?
living, oh, yeah, Thailand. Yes.
Why Thailand?
I don't know. It just everything I have never been to
Oh,
Thailand. I've been to Bali, which kind of from what I've seen about Thailand, a lot of that reminds me of Bali.
okay.
And I thought that Bali was just it was paradise. I had the
Yeah.
best time. So I just feel like Thailand is just kind of like where I'm going to end up. I just have this feeling. Like I knew I was going to move to New York even when I was like in my teens, before I even
Yes.
knew that New York was made up of 5 boroughs. I knew I was going to live in New York and live in Bed-Stuy. I was like,
Ooh.
wait, where is Bed-Stuy? What is that? It was like a premonition that I had. And then I ended
Wait,
up living in
was that from
Bed-Stuy, like
song lyrics, or you were just like,
no, it wasn't even song lyrics because when I was 15, we didn't really have access to like hip hop
mm,
like it is here. Like we didn't have Video Music Box. We didn't
okay.
have BET. We didn't get BET
Ah,
until like 1996
mhm,
on our television. So I was like, what, 20 at the time? Wait,
okay.
20, 19, 20? Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
So it was a different world. Okay.
it definitely was a different world. But I say
I
all that
wasn't
to say,
expecting
going back
that.
to, yeah, like the next chapter of my life is going to be living abroad, and I have a feeling that it's going to be Thailand.
Now, walk us back to where you were when you left doing mini motion pictures.
Mhm.
Were you ever like at a point where you were kind of worried about money or finances as you figured out the next step? Like, how do you get through those moments?
Um, no, I was never really worried about money because when I came to the States, obviously, you know, I'm illegal, so I can't really get a job. And I didn't do a lot, like enough music videos for that to be like a sustainable source of revenue.
Right. That's what I'm trying to
Um,
understand.
yeah, but I definitely I was a bartender, and I was a
Oh,
very,
okay.
very, very good bartender. I had been bartending in Toronto. It was one of my jobs that helped me pay my way through university. So when I got here, well, it was very easy to get a bartending job. I was young, I was hot. Everybody wanted me at the bar. Plus, it's just like, oh, she's that girl from the video. Oh, hell
Yeah.
yeah. You know, so it
Yeah.
was not difficult for me to get a bartending job. And usually in bars, lounges, clubs where a major promoter had parties going on. And
Mhm.
so I ended up, you know, in a very, 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 very short amount of time crossing paths with a lot of, you know, clientele with a high net worth. You know,
Yes.
so rappers would be like my customers, you know, dope boys, like just guys with guys with a lot of money, and
Right, right.
they like to tip really, really, really well. So there
Oh,
was nights where I would
good.
make my entire rent in like one single night, and
Nice.
that was just I first in Canada they tipped me in toonies and loonies. Okay, I was just walking around jingling like with change in my pockets, and
Not
here
tooties and
guys were
loonies.
like, you know,
Yeah.
peeling off like bills, and I was like,
Yes.
wow, you know. So that really helped me kind of sustain, you know, being able to pay my bills and my
Yeah,
rent and stuff
certified
like that.
side hustler. That's why I asked,
Exactly.
because I think sometimes people see the glitz and the glam and they're just assuming. But I know from working in entertainment, like there are gaps between each project and
Yes.
bills still need to be paid within those gaps. So the side hustle instinct has to kick in.
Yeah, the life of a freelancer is not for the faint of heart. The life of an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
It just isn't. There's just no promise or guarantee of anything. So bartending was definitely like my main source of income. And then when I transitioned from doing music videos to broadcast, like television broadcasting, so now I'm on
Hmm.
BET
Yeah.
as on camera talent, that was paying me very nicely.
Oh,
So I no
good.
longer was a bartender. And
Yeah.
that kind of started the next part of my career.
So tell us a little bit more about that next part. So you did acting on camera for several years. Was that where you saw yourself? Like that was the sweet spot where you're like, this is where I want my career to go?
No, I really was kind of just flying by the seat of my pants a little
Still,
bit,
okay.
and just throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck, kind of thing. It was
I
so hard.
appreciate this so much. I just want you to know that I really appreciate that because sometimes that's still how my career feels. So
Yeah,
I appreciate this conversation. Yes. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of times, it was really important for me for some reason to always make it
mm,
look like I had it all together and I knew
mm,
exactly what I was doing and where I was going and everything was well thought out. It is such a lie. It is not the truth. I did not know
yeah.
my ass from my elbow.
Yeah.
I was constantly like, just kind of looking up at the praying, somebody send me a sign.
Yes.
I was alone in the US. I didn't have any family. I didn't
Mm,
have any mentors. I didn't have any guidance. Nobody had done, there was no blueprint for what I was doing, going from music videos and having the audacity to try and make a career out of that. Like there
yeah.
was there was nothing there, in order to point me in any type of direction. Nobody knew what to do with me.
Yep.
Nobody wanted to manage me, because
Mm.
they were like, I don't know what to do with you, because
Oh,
what is,
wow.
like, exactly, like, what is your talent and how do I sell it other
Yes.
than you being beautiful? And I'm like, well, okay, well, then let me go on to the next opportunity, which is television broadcasting. Did I know what I was doing? Hell no. Did they
Uh-huh.
prepare me? Hell no. It was literally like Daniel in the lion's den, just thrown right in there and make it work for yourself. And so I got a little bit of media training, but I had no like talent development for on camera work. That was literally just me winging it and
Yes.
also studying people, so I had the
Yes.
benefit of Free being at BET when I joined. And I mean, Free was free. She was just
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
consummate professional. She was so amazing, and she's so talented.
Oh, I
And
love to hear that.
and
Yeah.
so literally all I had to do was just observe her and then kind of take my observations and then apply it in my own style. And so this was just how I, honed the craft, is by
Hmm.
observing the people that I had an enormous amount of respect for their talent and just kind of applied it. So
Yes.
those were the early days.
I totally relate to that. And I think there's something to be said from when you don't have an official blueprint, creating
Mhm.
one for yourself and saying, well, I'm going to study this person. That's a sort of a career that, that could be something. So let me study that, and putting together your own kind of curriculum.
Yeah.
And that's part of like being a hustler, being a side hustler, entrepreneur, grinder too. Cause if you're creating your own path, you still need a curriculum. Like you still need to piece it together for yourself.
Yeah, you do. And, and honestly, you can't be afraid of like failing forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, oftentimes the most terrifying opportunities that presented themselves were the ones that I jumped at, because like the analogy I gave of thinking about myself as a baby bird being pushed
Hmm.
out of the nest to, and either drop dead
Yeah.
or
Right.
fly. Those are the two options.
Yes.
And that's just how I had to live and
Hmm.
had to, approach opportunities that came my way. So it just, sometimes it would seem like things were kind of like a little chaotic, but the
Yeah.
whole purpose for me was to fail forward. If it was going to be a quote unquote failure, I was going to do it with forward momentum and learn a lot and apply the lesson to the next opportunity. And hopefully it makes me better at what I do.
Yes. And how do you manage the mental gymnastics that you have to go through to do this? Because everything you're describing is like, it's very easy to do on a good day, a good mental day. But on a day where you're like, what am I doing with my life? Like, do you have those days? And if so, how do you manage the mental gymnastics?
I struggled the majority of my life with my inner monologue being very, very, very negative. Like, I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and I remember feeling depression at 9. 9 years old. And it was the result of being bullied at school. And I didn't tell my parents. And actually, I would classify what I did next as kind of a suicide attempt at 9. It's so
What?
interesting that we just don't really kind of take into account the mental health of like children.
Hmm.
They're kids and they're
They
resilient
must
and they
be
bounce
having a
back
good
and stuff like
time.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the reality is that children can suffer from depression. They can be traumatized in not necessarily from, obvious things, but
Yeah.
just abandonment or neglect or whatever. And for me, or bullying that they just don't
Yeah.
tell you about. And, like just so from that point on, I just had always been extraordinarily hard on myself. Like I would not give myself a break for a single second. I would not let myself live down
Yes.
mistakes that I made or whatever. Like it just,
Yes.
as much as I thought that it made me more hard charging and
Hmm.
determined and stuff like that, there was also it also came at a detriment to myself as well,
Yeah.
because I did not know how to talk to myself nicely. I did not know how to be kind to myself. I didn't think I
Yeah.
was worthy of me showing myself kindness. It
Yeah.
seemed stupid, and ridiculous, and I didn't think that I deserved it. It took me a really, really, really long time and an intense amount of therapy for me to understand how to reframe how I speak to myself, how to be kinder to myself, how to give myself grace. I only discovered this in the last 3, 4 years after my mom passed away. So all the
Oh,
years prior to that, where the facade looked like there was never a crack in it, there was a category 5 hurricane going on inside.
wow.
And there was
Yeah.
times where I could not recharge my social battery for 6 months at a time, and I would just disappear. And I would
Hmm.
disappear and probably be self medicating with a little too much weed and a little too much alcohol. Like
Yeah.
I had some very significant, um, you know, self soothing bad coping mechanisms, like
Right. Right.
so many of us in this
Yeah,
industry
yeah.
do.
And you tell
Well, just in
yourself, "Oh,
life.
it's just a drink. I'm having a bad day," or it's just,
Yeah, no, 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 no.
some weed. It's healthy. It's
It
from the ground or whatever.
Yeah, no, not so much.
Not so
We
much.
we really like to say, it's wine. It's
It's
red wine. It's
that. It's
antioxidants.
right.
It's got
Yeah.
resveratrol in it. It's good for our skin. Yeah, no, no,
Yeah. But not
no.
how
It's a
you're
gateway.
using it. Yeah. Not how
Right.
you're using it to like numb your
Exactly.
feelings. Yeah.
Exactly. When you pick up your, recycling bag and you hear clink, 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 clink,
Oh
clink,
no.
girl,
Girl.
you might need to see the people.
Yes. And the people are okay to see. The
And the
people are
people
okay to
are
see.
okay to see. Just acknowledge you might need to see the people, and then you are so much better off. That's half the battle.
Like I said, I am so appreciating your transparency here because the mental battle of how we talk to ourselves is real. And it's something
Mhm.
I really had to reflect on, and I've been reflecting on a lot this year because I find, let's say we're in a room with entrepreneurial women and they start talking down and I'm like, "No, girl, blah blah blah." I'm picking her up. But then
Mhm.
when I'm thinking it through, I'm talking to myself like, I'm like, "Why are you doing that?" You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the most, I don't know what I want to call this moment, but it was very much a light bulb aha moment for
Mhm.
me. And it happened very recently, maybe within like the last year or so.
Yeah.
I followed Viola Davis on
Yes, yes.
Instagram because, Auntie Vi, like
Right,
bow
right.
down.
She has the best post. Yes.
I love Viola Davis. Okay, I have loved
Yes.
Viola Davis since she was like a character actor on Law and Order SVU.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like decades ago. I've been following this woman's career, and when she said during an interview that she suffers from imposter syndrome, I mouth agape. I could not believe that the grand dame Viola
Yes.
Davis suffers from imposter syndrome. At that
Hmm.
moment, I was just like, that's the moment that it became crystal clear. I need to give myself grace. If this
Yes.
woman suffers from imposter syndrome, then I need to find ways to continue to give myself grace, because
Absolutely.
that just was just kind of phenomenal to me. And then after that, I had a conversation with several girlfriends, and then just polling women
Hmm.
that I had the opportunity to talk to. And and doing some research on imposter syndrome and how many women it affects. It affects like 72% of women, and usually it's high achieving women. Women
Yes.
of high net worth and high achievement are the
Right.
ones that suffer from imposter
Who
syndrome.
have all the qualifications in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, and men don't suffer from it.
No.
they don't. No, they think they
They're
think
like,
they're
what's
the greatest
that?
thing since sliced bread. You know what I'm saying? I think a few of them suffer from like the Dunning Kruger effect, but that's a
Uh-huh.
whole other little
Right.
situation. But yeah, I mean that was just a real, like I said, light bulb aha
Yeah.
moment for me, that where I felt I didn't feel as alone
Hmm.
with my own, with my insecurities. I realized that the greatest, grandest, most impressive women on this planet
Hmm.
have the same issues, And I thought
Yes.
I
Yes.
loved that she was that transparent to tell us all
Oh
that.
yeah. Oh yeah. I've been finding myself too having these, well, why wouldn't I also aha moments where I'm like, and this is me being transparent here too, like, oh well, such and such also had two babies and is still carrying extra weight. Why wouldn't I? Like we're all in this age where it's harder to get weight off. Like, of course, why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't I also be
Mm-hmm.
experiencing that? Right. Like so,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what you touch on your new podcast too. Like, hello, we're kind of going through something. We're kind of going through, we're meeting this new person in our life, Perry, right? And
Yeah.
we got to acknowledge what the elephant in the room. We can't just act like this is not happening. So
I
I,
mean, I
yeah,
mean, I mean,
yeah.
Perry,
And I
girl.
haven't officially met Perry yet, but I'm just preparing myself. Everyone's telling me about him or her, whatever we want to call, like, so I'm getting my mind right.
So I was talking to one of my girlfriends the other day, and I was talking
Yeah.
about the first symptoms that I I did not know that these were symptoms attributed to
Yeah.
Perry, but
Uh-huh.
in hindsight, I can now recognize.
Yes.
For me, the very first signs, and Perry came along, just met me at the intersection of my mom passing away and
Oh
grief. So
man.
I
Oh
literally wanted to check
man.
myself into like a mental health facility. I did not think I was equipped to handle my life at
Hmm.
that time. I should not be making decisions. I shouldn't
Wow.
be handling, heavy machinery. I shouldn't be walking and talking at the same time. I was
Mm,
a mess. But
mm.
for me, the first signs was my hair falling out in strands, just
Oh.
strands of hair in the shower. And I had this big, huge, full afro, and it was just getting, just like I was losing my density. And I was like, what the is going on? And
Yeah.
then it was also very, very dry skin. And my
Hmm.
skin, my whole life has been extremely balanced,
Yeah.
like just nothing affects it. I can eat French fries, coat my skin in bacon grease, eat chocolate, and my skin is like, ooh, I got a glow. And so now I was like, crypt keeper. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then just like I couldn't tell if the anxiety and depression was attributed to grief or
Mm,
if it was perimenopause. I didn't know what my struggle was going to be for the
mhm.
day. I had no idea. But those
Yeah.
were the first signs, and then the next ones that kicked in was the temperature deregulation in your
Okay.
body, which basically
Yes.
results
Yes.
in hot flashes or night sweats. I never
Hmm.
got hot flashes, I got night sweats, and
Hmm.
they were horrific. I would
Oh.
wake up 6 or 7 times in the middle of the night, mattress, like sheets soaked to the mattress, and I
Ooh.
would wake up in terror. And you know what song would be playing incessantly in my head?
What song?
Time keeps on slipping, slipping, slipping
No.
into the future. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna die alone. Oh my God.
Oh my
It
god.
was the
Well, I'm
worst.
not scared at all.
I'm so glad that I'm past that phase, because I was like, somebody got to help me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
make it.
Oh my
But
God. So,
it's
and,
not for it is not for the faint of heart. But I
yeah.
will say this.
Hmm.
This is the advice. I am not a medical doctor. I will just say
Hmm.
what worked for me. When you start to see the symptoms creep up, talk to your either PCP or gynecologist or both
Hmm.
about hormone replacement therapy and
Mm.
find out if you are a good candidate for it. I am
Yes.
a good candidate for it. The earlier that you start, the easier it becomes and your symptoms subside a lot faster
Okay.
than
What
women
exactly
who
does
don't
that
do it.
entail? Is that like hormonal
Hormone
birth
replacement
control
therapy, it's
or?
different things. Sometimes it's birth control pills.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
it's an IUD. Sometimes it's transdermal, which basically means it goes in through your skin, so you can either apply lotions or a spray.
Hmm.
And it's progesterone, estrogen, and sometimes testosterone. Or what else? Or there's a pellet that's very controversial and it's also a little cost prohibitive because it's not
Hmm.
covered by insurance. There's also the estradiol patches that you can put on and then take progesterone supplements. There's
Okay.
many different ways that you can do HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy. And different things work for different people. You just kind of have to
Hmm.
find your thing. But my recommendation is when you start to feel like you're within that age range of perimenopause starting, make sure that you are getting your blood work done
Yes.
regularly.
Yes.
Have your doctors check your blood work, have them check your sex hormones, which is estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, the levels. Have them check your thyroid, have them check adrenal glands, have them check your iron levels. We start to decrease in
Oh yeah.
vitamin D, like it drops. Like these are the
Hmm.
things that you watch out for. And also get into the gym and start strength training. Cardio is not your friend after the age of 40.
Ooh.
The strength training, heavy weightlifting, and also rebounding and Pilates.
What's rebounding?
Rebounding, like get a mini trampoline and start
Oh,
jumping up
okay.
on that
Okay.
sucker. Yes,
Ah.
because yes, it helps us maintain bone density. We
Okay.
are very susceptible to a
Oh
dramatic
yes.
decrease in bone density, especially if we're not doing the strength training in the gym. We
Hmm.
lose bone density very quickly, and our risk of mortality increases by 20% after like a fall and like a broken hip or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
I've seen that
yes.
within my own, network. And so
Yeah.
I thank you for sharing this. You know what I really enjoy about watching your career from afar? It's as you have gone through these major life events and shifts, not only have you been open in a way that most people aren't able, equipped, emotionally or for
Mhm.
whatever reason, but also it then informs what you do next. So I love this current phase of you and all the things you're bringing to the world, both on the Joe Budden podcast and the balance you provide there, and also with your own Hot and Bothered show that you just launched. So tell us about that journey from when you were doing acting, on air work, and now transforming into the world of podcasts.
Well, thankfully, I'm able to do both.
Oh, good. Yes, yes.
Joe and the crew, they've been so awesome about
Hmm.
giving me time off. So
Hmm.
last summer, I shot a film in Canada
Okay.
called Hunting Housewives with
Yeah.
Denise Richards and Nene Leakes and Kim
Ah!
Johnson. It was such a great opportunity. It was so much fun. I mean,
Yeah.
I got bitten up by mosquitoes because we were in the forest for two
Oh
weeks.
no.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it was so fantastic. I spent most of my time with Denise Richards, and she is
Hmm.
just a gem. She's so awesome. We had the best time, and I really enjoyed working on that project. And so I took 3 weeks off from the pod, and
Hmm.
they were like, "Come back and tell us all about it." And
Yeah.
then this past March, I went back to Canada as well to shoot another project. So I've been really fortunate to just kind of have projects just kind of fall into my lap, like feature
Hmm.
films for Lifetime,
Nice.
which has been really great. I mean, you could not have told me that this was going to be my life even maybe 2.5 years ago, because I was,
Mm-hmm.
still in heavy recovery from my mom
Mm.
passing away.
Yeah.
And we're all just kind of, still, uh, trying to kind of right ourselves after the pandemic and just what that
Yes.
did to all of us collectively, mentally, emotionally, physically, even.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was still a very rough time in my life where I just did not know what my I just had no real outlook on what was going to. Everything just kind of seemed dim and dark. There didn't really seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And if you told me within 2 years you're going to have shot going to have shot two feature length films, you're
Yep.
going to be on the biggest urban podcast in the world, and you're going to buy your first investment property, I would have said there's no way in hell. There's no way. There is no
Yes.
way. I did not think that I was going to live to see 46 and 47 years
Oh
old. I really didn't.
man.
My grief was that palpable,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a stronghold on me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's just really interesting to see just how much your life can pivot over a very short amount of time in such a meaningful way. So
Yeah.
I'm filled with so much gratitude about that. But so I haven't really had to do any real kind of transition. I've been
Mm-hmm.
able to do all the things I've wanted to do. But as far as Hot and Bothered is concerned, I knew that I wanted to make my own show again. I
Yeah.
had my own podcast about 4.5 years ago called "I'm Here for the Food,"
I know
and
that.
yeah, I mean, I love that was my baby. I
Mm-hmm.
loved "I'm Here for the Food." I loved,
Yeah.
yeah. I just was so excited about how much people loved the show. The comments, like people would be writing me novellas about how meaningful the
Really
content was, and that
nice.
made me feel so good because I'm really not here to do like pop culture or talk
Yeah.
about gender war stuff. Like
You want to
really
have an
have no
impact.
interest. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just really want to highlight people who might be like existing on the fringe of society or a marginalized, group, or maybe they're an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like they need to be highlighted or celebrated or whatever the case is. And, that was the point of "I'm Here for the Food." I wanted to
Yeah.
continue that kind of mission, but now with my own personal experiences, the health issues that I had experienced from the car accident, the grief I experienced from my mom passing away, the pandemic and how it affected me, and then entering perimenopause and
Yes.
how little I knew about perimenopause, how I was
Yes.
literally like not prepared for it, and how I realized that no woman is prepared for it, because this was like a dirty little secret that we were expected to keep and just go off into pasture and shut up about.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no. I think not. And I think that the
Yes.
reason why we're hearing so much about menopause these days is because Gen X is pissed off. We are
Mm-hmm.
so fed up with having to learn things in real time with nobody telling us anything. We're the generation that our parents strung a key around our necks and said, get home on public transportation at the age of 7, cook
Don't
yourself
tell
a meal, and
anybody,
don't
but
burn
go
the
go
house
ahead and go
down.
home. Right, right. Stay
Exactly.
quiet. Don't answer the
Like,
door.
exactly. It's just like they had to have a commercial. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Because our parents didn't know where the hell we were. So this is yet another thing that we had to learn all on our own, and we're fed up. And also, you realize that the medical community, the medical industry, by and large, after your childbearing years, really in no uncertain terms lets you know that you have no value anymore.
Mm.
You can't draw any other conclusion as to why nothing is taught to doctors about menopause at all ever. Like they might, in their whole residency, they might spend 20 hours on menopause. Like that is horrible. That's horrible. That is abysmal. And so now that is what Gen X has discovered, and we're pissed. We're mad. So now everybody's going to hear about menopause. Everybody's
Right.
hearing
Well,
about
it's
it
not just
now.
about that, right? It's about everything, your advocacy, how you feel about sex, intimacy, just having
Hmm.
candid conversations. I'm curious, like having the lens of someone who is on, a top urban podcast, who you're doing a different level of podcasting, right? Like, what's your
It's different.
perspective on the podcast landscape these days and the platform itself?
Uh, I think that, you know, the pandemic encouraged way too many people to go and buy mics on Amazon that they they shouldn't have done that. I think that there's so many people just kind of throwing their uneducated opinions into the ether. They're
Mm.
leading with their trauma. It's like, can you
Oh
please go to
man.
therapy before you
Yeah.
get on a microphone and start spewing all this crap into like the ether and people
Yes.
like absorbing it? I mean, the reality is there's like 3 million podcasts and 1.8 million of them are like dormant. Like
Hmm.
most podcasts don't last past 21 episodes.
And I
Like
think
it
that's with a
is.
lot of things that people start, though. I think
Mhm.
people overall underestimate what it's like to start anything, like a rap career or write a book. Like, it's
It's
not
not
just going to
easy.
happen. There, yeah.
No, no, it's not easy. It's not just going to happen. And also, to me, it's a craft. It's a
Hmm.
craft that you have to develop
Yes.
your talent for. And
Yeah.
the way that you do that is partially through observation. So you look at the best to do it, and I
Yes.
sit next to one of the best to do it.
Hmm.
I do have to say that sitting next to Joe is what made me feel comfortable to finally say, okay, I'm ready to go back to miking my own platform, my
Hmm.
own podcast. It took me a while to get back there, but sitting next to him is literally like a masterclass. He's nuts, he is with genius breeds eccentricity type thing, and he
Hmm.
definitely is that. But being able to just watch just even the technical stuff that he
Yeah.
does,
Right.
I yeah, it's a masterclass, and it's amazing. Like I'm getting like a free education, and so I
Yeah.
think that that's what's important when it
And
comes
it's
to podcasting is like is
right.
honing the craft through observation of the best to do it.
Yes. And it's back to what we were touching on about, like, you have to create your own curriculum. Like, you're literally, there's
Hmm.
someone and multiple people that you're studying, you're creating your curriculum because you want to develop this craft and continue to grow.
Yeah, and with growth, you also have to understand that perfect is the enemy of good. And I have to keep reminding myself of that
Yeah.
when I feel like things are going wrong. It's like
Yeah.
that sensible Melyssa is like, girl, it's your fifth episode.
Yeah.
Chill out.
I was just about to
Okay.
say, you really can't compare yourself to someone who's been doing it for eight, however many years, and is on their 500th, 600th episode. Like,
Exactly.
it,
Exactly.
it,
So
it sounds simple, but we all do it.
yeah, yeah. So that's one of the things that's the grace that I talk about that I now have learned
To
to
give
apply and
yourself.
say, Girl, calm down. It's okay. There's bugs, but they
Uh-huh.
will be worked out, and eventually we'll be in a plug and play situation,
Yes.
But right now, remember, perfect is the enemy of good. That is not, you are not going for perfection right now. You're just not.
No. Speaking of that, how do you think about and approach your quote unquote personal brand, right? Before you were just living your life, but at some point you had to start thinking about it. So, how do you think about it these days in terms of what do you post on social? Are you overthinking it? Are you planning it? Or are you giving yourself a little bit of organic, just throwing stuff up there?
Listen, I am an old lady, okay? I am an old lady. I am not tech savvy at all. I need to hire one of these Gen Zers to come
Yeah.
in and like run my social media for me. Just come in, record, just tell me what to do, okay?
Yeah.
What TikTok dance am I supposed to do? What trend am I supposed to jump
Right.
on? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like my personal brand, I feel like it's been so easy to get the guys,
Uh-huh.
like
Uh-huh.
just be pretty and be sexy, and
Yeah.
it's easy. They're easy. But women, we're
Yeah.
not easy,
Yeah.
okay?
And that's not
We
who you want. You don't want the guys. You're talking to
I
the
don't know.
women.
I
Yeah.
don't need I don't
You
need
don't
them
need
anymore.
them. Yeah.
I love the guys. I love the
Yeah.
guys, but women are my tribe.
Mm-hmm.
They are. And
Yeah.
so when it comes to women and why they follow people on social media, they follow people on social media who they find engaging, entertaining, or aspirational. And
Yes.
so whether that's, oh, I love the way she dresses, she's so effortlessly chic and fashionable, or oh my God, her skin. I
Yeah.
just want to know everything that she does. And she posts all her skincare products and regimens and what she does from morning to night. Or, oh my God, her hair and her hair care tips or whatever, or a combination of all of the things. Or
Mm-hmm.
she's like a motivational speaker like Alex L. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And she drops these gems and all these things. And I'm just like, uh, uh, I'm just I'm just over here winging it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
winging it. The most I find myself even able to do is if I'm doing something in the gym, I give my phone to my trainer. I'm like, "Yo, get this before I die, okay? I got about I got
Yes. Yes.
20 seconds in me. So get this right now." And so I hope to, I don't know, find my way towards being aspirational that way, because that's the easiest thing for me to do. I'm always in the gym, and I encourage people to, women to get into the gym. Well, people to get into the gym. But
Yeah.
all the other stuff, I am a mess.
You
I'm
know,
a mess.
it's one of those things where at this point, if you try to overly structure, like, here are my 5-year goals and here's what I want to, like, it would probably, first of all, none of it would happen that way, right? It would continue to happen how it's supposed to happen, and it would overcomplicate things. So I
We
think,
plan and God laughs.
exactly, exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
touched on it briefly, but you were in a major car accident and that significantly impacted you. How were you able to recover from that, and how do you think it changed the trajectory of your career and your goals and what's important to you?
I was actually just talking to somebody about it yesterday. I
Mm-hmm.
don't even remember why. But it was, I remember when it was happening, the impact, and then realizing that my car was about to flip and there
Mm-hmm.
was nothing that I could do. And so I just kind of took my hands off the wheel and I sat back and took my feet off the pedals and just sat there and just
Wow.
waited for the inevitable. And the inevitable, what I thought at the time was, I'm not going to survive. This is
Mm-hmm.
how I die. And how peaceful I was with that, with that realization. There was
Wow.
nothing that I could do. We planned, God laughs.
Mm-hmm.
What was I going to do? Sit in the seat and scream and whatever else? That wasn't going to change anything. It
Yeah.
wasn't going to change anything. So I feel like if I was ever on a plane that was going down, I would probably be the calmest person on that plane, because I'd be like, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? So that was kind of like what was
Yeah.
happening during that moment, when my car started to flip. I just had resigned myself to, I have no control in this
Wow.
moment. And so let me just ride it out and see what's supposed to happen. And then it took about a year to fully recover and feel like I was okay enough to go back to work. Recovery was extraordinarily challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Having a traumatic brain injury, a lot comes with that. A lot of like mental anguish, pain, and suffering comes with that. The rehab, and also just the mental health issues
Mm-hmm.
that came with that. But I found so many people, strangers,
Yeah.
incredibly supportive, like incredibly, like I'm talking about like Gulf War vets, like
Wow.
contacting me to talk about PTSD and to talk about brain injuries and
Mm.
how, and some of the the modalities that they used to put them on the path, like, put them on the path towards improvement and stuff like that. So I think that what that did was, I was always so private prior to that. I never wanted anybody, like I said, to see a crack in the facade ever. And what happened after the car accident was I realized that I just didn't have the bandwidth to hide anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I started to like cry out for help because I truly did not know how to navigate this this time in my life. It was so
Mm-hmm.
foreign to me, and I wasn't around anybody who really understood what I was going through. And so inadvertently, by crying out and by being so candid and posting about my depressive episodes and what I was thinking and feeling, I endeared myself to people
Mm-hmm.
who really at that point didn't really give two shits about me, honestly, excuse my French, but like
Yeah.
they really were like, oh yeah, I've heard her name, but I'm indifferent.
Right. We didn't know Melyssa, the person, the woman, it's almost like you were, yeah, it's like you were like on a poster kind of. And that
Yeah,
you didn't
it's like I
see a
was this
human
one
there.
dimension. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like this. I was this one dimensional, like just being on their wall, like sex
Yeah.
symbol or whatever the case is. And no, in reality, I was a three-dimensional human being who was wounded, gravely
Mm-hmm.
wounded, like emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, all the things. I was a mess, and I was looking for help in like anywhere that I could find it. And like I said, inadvertently, I didn't realize that what I was doing was endearing myself to people who may not have been familiar with me or really had
Mm-hmm.
been indifferent towards me. And I can't really see that as being like a career trajectory,
Mm-hmm.
but it kind of was,
It
because what
was.
it showed me was that I could be a conduit.
Mm-hmm.
My ability to storytell and speak eloquently, and express, describe how I'm feeling, made people feel seen and related. Like, they related their experience to mine. And in
Yes.
that way, like I said, endeared them to me. And I would get, people saying to me all the time, like, when you talked about your traumatic brain injury, I have been trying to tell my friends and family what you expressed. I now tell them, watch that interview because she
Mm.
said exactly what I've been trying to tell you all for years. And I
Yes.
said, wow, that's really powerful. And I said, if I can keep doing that and keep telling stories about my own personal experiences with, a fractured sense of mental health or a
Mm-hmm.
fractured sense of self, um, just being transparent and honest and candid, I might actually help people. And so I think that was an unintentional change in trajectory in my career.
Yes. How did
Yeah.
you find the strength to seek help and to continue trying and fighting?
I've always been um I've always been like a strong advocate for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Always. I've never been one of those people of like, how can therapy help me? No. I have discovered a lot about myself during therapy sessions
Okay.
over the course of like 2 decades. And, you go to therapists at different times for different reasons. And so I feel like my sense of self awareness has
Mm-hmm.
grown dramatically because of the intense therapy that I've gone through, shadow work and the whole nine, the use of psilocybins for the purpose of like as a natural
Yeah, plant
antidepressant.
based. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly, plant based medicine. So I think that it's not even about finding strength. Sometimes it really was just like making it through the day
Mm.
and going to sleep and then seeing, hopefully waking up and seeing another day. And also just not trying to catastrophize everything and not trying to pile too many things up on my plate when I knew,
Yeah.
when I could finally acknowledge, girl, you're not Superwoman.
No.
You're not. You're
Yeah.
not her. And stop trying to be her because you're not going to win a prize at the end of the day. And
Yes.
so sometimes the self care for
Mm-hmm.
me or self love was lay in bed all day or eat the cake or go for a hike or go to a movie by yourself. Just whatever self-indulgence was required for that moment, do it.
Yeah.
I would give myself the permission to just do what I needed to do for the sake of my sanity at whatever point it was. So those just became like my rules of, of operation.
I love those rules. Before we jump into the lightning round, I'm curious if there's one thing that you want people to take away from this conversation, what would it be?
Probably watch Hot and Bothered. Hot and Bothered with Melyssa Ford. Yeah, I mean, definitely check out my podcast, because I mean that's where I'm dropping all the gems that I possibly can. I am mining my brain for, stories and anecdotes that I can share with everybody that can, that they can, find, and relate to. I'm interviewing incredible guests, a lot of medical professionals that will teach you a lot about, health, preventative health, screenings that you need to do, and ways to just kind of like, increase your chances for living a long and healthy life. Yes. That would be what I would want people to take away from this interview, is just really to check out my show and see what we're offering over there. I'm not talking about pop culture, people. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm not going to be talking about gender war stuff.
No.
I can't. I can't. I'm feeding your soul. That's what I'm trying to do over there.
Ooh, I love that. That's the tagline right there. I hope that's in your description.
Well, I mean, I'm here for the food. That was the tagline. It was like, welcome to another episode.
You're still feeding the soul, even more so.
It was like, this is where we talk about topics that feed your mind, your spirit, and your soul. But it's pretty much, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just got a little bit more of like a medical kind of.
It's not literal food, but it's feeding the soul.
It's food for the soul. It's food for the soul. Yes.
Definitely. If you enjoyed this conversation with Melyssa, of course you have to go and check out Hot and Bothered, because she's going to continue to have these conversations and so much more. And one thing I hope that you guys take away from this conversation is your mind, your health, and your business are not mutually exclusive. So the reason I wanted to have you in the guest chair is to talk about the things that we often neglect as we build our businesses, which is ourselves. And we can't be there for our business if we're not really honing in on taking care of ourselves. So I hope this conversation inspires you to do that, especially leading into 2025. Like, let's remember, we got to do this for us. We have to put ourselves first.
Oh, yeah. And if 2016 to 2020 was any kind of inkling as to what the next 4 years are going to be like, yeah, you really, really, really have to have a very, 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 very strong set of self-care and self-love, non-negotiables set out for yourself.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And it might just be walk away from the TV, walk away from your phone, walk away from it all. Just get a lot of Epsom salts and some bath bombs.
I think I've been in this space of denial. Like, I have not watched the news. So I'm just in this space of like floating denial, unfortunately, because that's my coping mechanism right now. I can't. I know it's going to hit the fan in January, but I'm just
listen, we did what we were supposed to do. Well, black women did what black people, for the most part, did what they were supposed to do. I'm not a citizen, so I was not allowed to vote. But if I had been allowed to vote, Kamala would have gotten my vote without hesitation.
Yes.
So we
did what we were supposed to do. And there's a collective rest going on. There's a collective like pause and rest, and say what you want to say about it, but we need a moment to gather our thoughts and to feel our feelings. And
absolutely,
if that's taken too long for some people, I'm sorry, but I gotta go through my process. So
exactly.
With that, we're going to do a quick lightning round where you just answer the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. So, number one, what is a resource that has helped you in your career and business that you can share with the Side Hustle Pro audience?
What is a resource?
Resource, tip, person. I don't know.
Chat
Okay.
GPT.
What
Yeah.
do you use it for? I'm curious.
A lot of times, if I am interviewing a doctor, so I just interviewed a
Oh.
doctor who is, he's a unicorn. He's a black male oncologist who specializes in colorectal cancer and prostate cancer.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, hallelujah. So listen, I know I'm out of my depth
Uh-huh.
speaking to this man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I decided to do a show talking about, a lot of like medical issues that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of us might face in either our near or far future, or know somebody that has had it. But that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that I'm going to know exactly what questions to ask this person.
Right.
So Chat GPT came in handy
Hello.
of giving me a template of
Yes.
what I could possibly ask this particular type of doctor.
Yeah.
So that is how I use Chat GPT.
All right. I love that. Number two, who is a non celebrity Black woman entrepreneur that you'd want to switch places with for a day and why?
My friend Angelique Miles.
Ooh, I've heard that name.
Angelique Miles is, first of all, if you go to her page and you realize that this woman is 58 years
Oh,
old,
I
you
definitely
are
follow
going to,
her. Yes, I
yeah,
follow her.
it's going to make you change your religion. You're just going to be like, okay, girl, tell me what to do.
Uh-huh.
What do I do so that when I get to 58, I look like you? She is like my goals. She is a sweet, kind, just woman. She's amazing. Her life is just, it seems to be awesome because she's always traveling and she's always going out and she always looks so fashionable. But she also just had a brain tumor and she had to have brain
Yes, I
surgery.
saw
And
that.
yeah, and so thankfully she survived. But she's been very candid about how hard the road to recovery has been,
Hmm.
but she's done it with just such a warrior spirit,
Hmm.
and she has just looked so effortlessly chic, even like recovering from brain surgery.
Yeah.
And just having the opportunity to know her personally, and just also seeing how she kind of just decided to try Instagram influencing. And now she's like getting all of these opportunities to work with these brands like Warby Parker
Yes.
and Buick and Lincoln and whoever else. And I'm just like, and she just did this from like, grassroots, just, her following is growing organically. I would definitely say Angelique Miles is a source of
She
inspiration.
is
If I was to
super
switch places with
inspiring.
somebody,
Yes.
momentarily, it would be her.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Number three, what's a non negotiable part of your day?
A non-negotiable part of my day is time with my dog. Is non-negotiable. Like I wake up, like she sleeps in her own bed,
Yeah.
and in the morning when I know I've got like maybe about 20-30 minutes left to kind of lie in bed, I go and pick her up out of her bed and I put her into
Aw.
bed with me, and we just kind of like cuddle for the next 20 or 30 minutes. And that's pretty much like how I start my day. Is
Aw.
like is just cuddles with my dog. I love
Oh, I
her.
love
She's
that.
my emotional support. She's been there through my car accident, through the passing of my mom, all my things. So
Hmm.
I can't live without her. She's my baby. My
Mm.
dogged her.
Yeah, doctor. What number four, what is a personal trait that has really helped you significantly in life and business?
Resilience. Sometimes as Black women, people constantly tell us how strong we are,
Ugh.
and to our own detriment.
Hmm.
We shouldn't have to be as strong as we are all the time,
Yeah.
for everybody and ourselves.
Yes.
And I really used to look at my resilience as, as a virtue, and
Hmm.
then started to realize that a lot of times it was very much a trauma response.
Ooh,
This is
say it.
therapy talking. This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
therapy
yeah.
talking.
Say it.
But still, my resilience does come along and help me in moments that I think that would level other people.
Hmm.
There's been times where it seemed like everything was just going to fall apart. And, I just kind of like breathe in through my nose, hold it,
Yes.
box breath, and then exhale through my mouth. And then I start moving and I start to, start planning, and I stop
Hmm.
catastrophizing.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, there is only one option through. Let's do
Yes.
it. Let's go. And so I would say that my resilience is definitely that trait that helps me the most.
And then finally, number 5. Now, what's your parting advice for Black women entrepreneurs and side hustlers who want to fly by the seat of their pants and want to wing it, but are scared about not having a steady paycheck?
That is a challenge because you always want to feel like, your rent is paid, your bills are paid, that you have
Absolutely.
a place to lay your head on the pillow at night and stuff like that. But I mean, I feel like my life has been a life well lived. And I realized this while the accident was taking place, that one of the reasons why I felt like I was okay with if this was it for me, I did have the flash of my life. And I saw just how extraordinary my life actually had been. All of the travel that I had, and all the places that I had seen, all the wonderful places I had been, the people that I had encountered and stuff like that. And, even though I didn't seem to be regularly, acknowledging a sense of gratitude in that moment, I really actually was full of it. And so, a life well lived is not done without risk. That's just it. And when it comes down to it, the life best lived is full of experiences and not things. I stopped being like a clothes horse and needing like the newest bag and the newest pair of shoes. Those things are wonderful, but nothing trumps experiences. Those are valuable beyond measure. So I would say keep that in mind when you're weighing your options about something that might seem a little bit more risky. Trust me, if you want it bad enough, you're gonna figure it out. You will. Just have that sense of faith in yourself.
Yes. Oh, I love this. That's such a good note to end on. And, before I officially usher you out, I just want to say one last takeaway that I hope you guys get from this episode and that I've gotten is allowing yourself to be a conduit. So many times we think, oh, I need to learn how to do X and then I can launch a podcast. Whereas actually there's something about your lived experience and your knowledge and your skill set that has given you that idea and that you are meant to serve as the conduit to these conversations. You don't have to be an expert in anything, okay? You just need to be the person that curates and moderates these conversations. So allow that, okay? And
Absolutely.
I thank you for that reminder.
You're welcome.
So
You're welcome.
With that, where can people connect with you and Hot and Bothered after this conversation?
I am at Melyssa Ford on Instagram. That is the app that I use the most.
Yes.
All the rest drive me crazy, even though I am on Twitter as well. I'm on Blue Sky. Christ, there's so many of them.
Yeah,
I'm
TikTok,
on TikTok.
all of them. We'll look for
all
it.
of them.
Yes.
I'm on Facebook somewhere. But Instagram is the one that I use the most. I also have an Instagram page for the Hot and Bothered podcast. It's Hot and Bothered Podcast on Instagram. And then from there, we have the links to the YouTube page. And also, the podcast, it's available on all DSPs. Everybody, DSPs means digital streaming platforms. That's Apple Podcasts, that's Spotify, that's Google Play, that's SoundCloud. We're on that on Tuesdays, and then we drop our visual episodes on Thursdays on YouTube. And the link is in the bio of both my personal page and also the podcast page.
Love it, love it, love it, y'all. You learned something new today. All right, so go find your DSP of choice and check that out. Melyssa, thank you so much for being in the guest chair. And friends, I will talk to you next week. Hey guys, thanks for listening to Side Hustle Pro. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other side hustlers just like you to find the show. And if you want to hear more from me, you can follow me on Instagram at Side Hustle Pro. Plus, sign up for my 6-bullet Saturday newsletter at sidehustlepro.co/newsletter. When you sign up, you will receive weekly nuggets from me, including what I'm up to, personal lessons, and my business tip of the week. Again, that's sidehustlepro.co/newsletter to sign up. Talk to you soon.